The IndyCar Series begins this weekend around the Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama. It is America's premier single-seater series and one of the most competitive and tight series in the world. So we're going to be previewing the series here. We'll be talking about the calendar, we'll talk about the teams and drivers that participate in this series, and also talk about what they'll be racing. Everybody races with the DW12 chassis, named after the late great Dan Weldon who tested the car. It is a car that has changed over the years though. They currently race with the UAK18 or Universal Aero kits introduced in 2018. So every car looks the same. And they also all have 2.2 litre V6 twin-turbo engines in the back since 2012 as well. Now these will change in 2023 as they become a hybrid 2.4 litre engines, and there's been some pre-season testing with push to pass to simulate how these cars will behave with hybrids in the back. But despite all of these cars looking similar, there are two different manufacturers who provide those engines, Chevrolet and Honda, and they've been fiercely battling to be the best engine manufacturer. It used to be Chevrolet in the first half of this era, but now it looks like the tide has turned towards Honda, who are the current Indy 500 champions and of the current champion as well, champion team in Chip Ganassi and champion with Scott Dixon. So Chevrolet have a fight on their hands to win back that crown this year, and they'll be doing it over a 17 race calendar, which is up from 14 from last season, which was of course shortened by the pandemic. And IndyCar is unique among single seaters in that they race on ovals. But this year we're seeing the least amount of ovals on the calendar since the inaugural IRL or Indy Racing League season of 1996-97 or the ovalless 2007 Champ Car season, because American Open World Racing was split from 96 till 2008 when they unified and have been unified since then. And the IRL began with an oval only series, so we've seen less ovals over the years, and there's a bit worrying as well, as apart from the Indy 500 none of the ovals really perform that well, and we've seen a number of ovals over the years do a variety of formats. You see the traditional 3-day format or a 2-day format or night only races, or there's been lots of different ways to try and get ovals to be popular. Unfortunately it's just not really working. And so this year we begin with, as I said, on the Indy Grand Prix of Alabama this weekend, and then next week we have the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg around the streets of St. Petersburg in Florida. And then we have the first oval of the season at Texas Motor Speedway. We have two races at the beginning of May before we head into what's effectively the month of May, which has become the additional running now of the month of May, beginning with the Grand Prix of Indianapolis around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, and then at the end of the month we have the 105th running of the Indianapolis 500 round the famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A couple of weeks after that though, we have the Jewel in Detroit round the streets of Belle Isle, and which has been another event which has become kind of a fixture on the calendar in recent years. A week after that though, we head to Road America, one of the best road courses throughout the whole of the world, for the With Group Grand Prix at Road America. Then at the beginning of June we head to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course for the Honda Indy 200, and then a week later we see the only round held outside of the United States of America in Canada for the Honda Indy Toronto round, held around Exhibition Place in Toronto. Then there's a bit of a break of almost a month before we head to the big machine Music City Grand Prix, the inaugural event around the Nashville Street Circuit. This is pretty exciting. They've got a bridge, that's pretty exciting. It's part of the course, so we'll see how that performs, and it's a tradition for IndyCar to have it seems like a street course randomly on the calendar. We've had it round like a Houston Grand Prix, which is held around the car parts of the Houston NFL stadium, and we've had street races in like Las Vegas, all over the place, so we'll see how this performs. And then a week after that we head back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course for an unmet named event. It was known as the Harvest Grand Prix last year, so we'll see if it'll be again. And then a week after that we have we head to the final oval of the season in Gateway, at the Worldwide Technology Raceway in St. Louis, for the Bommarito Automotive Group 500, a oval which has come back to IndyCar in the last couple of years and been very successful. It's like bucked the trend of ovals on IndyCars, so very much looking forward to it. Always a great race, exciting race around Gateway. And in our final month of September, it always gets, in the second half of the calendar, it always gets a bit tighter with all these events. As in the last couple of months, you have 6 events compared to, was it 7 at the beginning, or 6 at the beginning of the month as well, of the season in April or May, and then, you know, a bit more spread out in June, July as well. So in September, we have the Grand Prix of Portland, around the Portland International Raceway in Oregon, which is returned in the last couple of years as well, just like Gateway, and it's a pretty nice road course, very short, just like the Firestone Grand Prix of Monterey around the WeatherTech Raceway in Laguna Seca. Used to be the season finale the last couple of years, but instead the streets of Long Beach will be that season finale for the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, IndyCar's premier street circuit event. It's been on the calendar for almost 40 years since it dropped off the F1 calendar. Even though it was missing last year, it returns this year with a new sponsor in Acura, and it's always an exciting event. Maybe not the most exciting races, think of Monaco for F1, but it's always one that drivers want to win, is the Long Beach Grand Prix. So that is the 17 race calendar. You can see great variety between road, street courses and ovals, long and short. But who's going to be racing on them? So firstly, let's check out AJ Foyt Enterprises. Team began by the legendary AJ Foyt, the winningest driver in IndyCar history, and currently run by his son Larry. It is a team that has struggled in recent years, but it's got a fantastic lead driver to hopefully lead them back towards the front in Sebastian Bourdais, the 4-time champion from 2004 to 2007 in Champ Car. He is back in a full-time seat, and for the first time since 2019 after being dropped by Dale Coyne, and he's coming off a season in IMSA with JDC where he, with the team, he just won the Sebring Trail of Hours last month. He had 3 races with the team at the end of last year where he ended the season in 4th on his home race in St. Pete, and he hasn't won the Indy 500, the marquee event, but he does have a best finish of 7th there in 2014 with KV Racing, though he did miss his best chance of winning that event in 2017 after having a massive crash with Dale Coyne at 230 miles per hour in qualifying, which meant he missed most of the season due to pelvic and hip fractures. But the veteran Frenchman, is in his early 40s now. He has a best finish of 7th in the standards of Dale Coyne in 2018 since American Open World Racing got unified in 2008, and it definitely could be an aim for him to be in the top 10. Again, don't expect him to be fighting for the championship, but expect him to definitely be up there, especially on the street courses with AJ Foyt, and I'm always a fan of Bourdais. He's definitely one of my favourite drivers in IndyCar, and I cannot wait to see what he does with the team. And joining the veteran Frenchman is the rookie Canadian Dalton Kellett, as this will be his full-time debut season after running a partial schedule of the team last year, as he competed in 8 races, had the best finish of 20th in the Road America races, finished 26th in the standings. And this is a driver who spent 8 seasons on the road to Indy, which is IndyCar's kind of ladder series. You compete in the USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000 and Indy Lights. Well, he spent 8 seasons on that and never really fought for a title. He struggled for consistency on the road to Indy. Only had a handful of podiums in Indy Lights, mostly in the Freedom 100 from 2016 to 2018, which is Indy Lights kind of Indy 500-esque event, which they won't be having this season. Very angry at you, Penske, for that. But yeah, he could be struggling this season, the young Canadian, as I said, he kind of struggled on the road to Indy for consistency in a team that is pretty difficult to get top 10 results with consistently. Maybe get top 20 results for him. And IndyCar also features quite a lot of part-time drivers, particularly for the Indy 500, which is pretty unusual in the grand scheme of things now we see at top level motorsports. But for Foyt, they also have a couple of Indy only entries, beginning with Charlie Kimball, the veteran, the winner of the 2013 Mid-Ohio race. He spent a number of years at Chip Ganassi. He spent last year full time with AJ Foyt, competing the whole season, get a couple of top 10 finishes on his way to 18th in the standings. He'll be back this year, but only for the month of May, so doing the Grand Prix of Indy and the Indy 500. And he has been strong at Indy 500 in the past. He has a podium there from 2015 when he beat out teammate Scott Dixon for that podium, and he got a top 5 in 2016. But it is going to be a bit tougher with AJ Foyt, especially with how competitive the field is now. And also making an Indy 500 only appearance is JR Hildebrand, another veteran of the IndyCar Series, perhaps unfortunately best known for a second place finish at the Indy 500 when he lost the win on the final corner, lapping Charlie Kimball, who's now his teammate. But he's making an appearance at the Indy 500 for the 4th year in a row, but he's driving for AJ Foyt for the first time. And he'll be driving in a livery that celebrates AJ Foyt's 1961 Indy win. So on the 60th anniversary, like here, drive the livery, they're all been like the same attire as well as they were back then, with like all the pit crew and stuff, so it'd be fantastic to see. I know his last top 10 at Indy was in 2016 with Edcombe Racing with Sith. He is pretty good on the long ovals, so maybe being at AJ Foyt, like they have been decent at the Indy 500 the last couple of years, like he could be making his way back towards a top 10 finish there on the big oval. But perhaps his biggest appearance, at least for me, this year is that he's going to appear at Pikes Peak in an IndyCar, an actual IndyCar, one of these IndyCars. That's going to be fantastic on that hill climb. And we move from one of the teams that might struggle this year to one of the big three, Andretti Autosport, run by Michael Andretti, the champion around 30 years ago now, the son of Mario Andretti as well. He always has like at least one driver battling for a title, and last year that was Colton Herta. He wasn't quite in the title fight with Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, but his consistency led to a top 3 finish, as he only finished outside the top 10 last year 3 times, and he ended up 100 points behind Joseph Newgarden in second. So it shows you do need to get those podium and top 5 finishes if you do want a challenge for the title. His only one win was at Mid-Ohio, and his only other podium was at the penultimate round on the Indy Road Course. He was only 5 points ahead of his old Indy Lights rival, Pato O'Ward, in the standings. So yeah, definitely expect those to be battling more this season. He's the son of former driver Brian Herta, who's now his strategist. So he's going to hear his father all the time during the races, and Brian Herta is one of the best strategists around, as he won the 100th Indy 500 a couple of years ago with Alexander Rossi, and the 100th anniversary Indy 500 with the late great Dan Weldon. So for Herta Jr., that is, the 21-year-old, he's already a big name in IndyCar after just 2 full-time seasons. So again, he might be Andretti Autosport's driver to challenge for the title, but Alexander Rossi, we have a word about that. As the 2016 Indy 500 winner, he had a kind of strange year last year, as he started off the season poorly. Like, he only had one podium at Road America in the first half of the season. He crashed out the Indy 500, pushing very hard after fighting back from getting a penalty. But in the second half of the season, he did get it together. He got 4 podiums on the trot to salvage his season. So he ended up in the top 10 in the end, finishing 9th in the standings. But he's more known for fighting for the championship, as he did in 2018 and 19. And his best finish in the championship is second in 2018 when Scott Dixon beat him to the title. But he already has success this season, as he won the 24 Hours of Daytona with Rain Taylor Racing. And they definitely expect the Californian to bounce back this year and be challenging for the title, just continuing that form he showed the second half of last season. And Rossi isn't the only Indy 500 champion in the team. There's also 2012 Series champion Brian Hunter-Reay alongside him as the 2014 Indy 500 champion. He's struggled since winning that title. He hasn't actually challenged for a title since winning that. And despite being in the top 10 every season since then, apart from in 2016, he enters the season with some question marks about him. He's one of 3 big names in a contract year, so they're only signed for this year. So the 40-year-old, one of the number of drivers of 40 years old, he could be on the hot seat, as he's one of only 5 drivers in the field to have won the series title and the Indy 500 alongside Scott Dixon, Simon Pagenaud, Will Power and Tony Kanaan. But he only had 1 podium last year at Mid-Ohio, as one of only 4 top 5 finishes. As at St. Pete, he managed to clinch a top 10 in the final standings, finishing ahead of Felix Rodriguez and just 2 points behind Rossi in the standings. So with Herta and Rossi in the team, like maybe they're the future and present for the team, could Hunter Ray already be the past? It'd be a big question mark over him this season, especially if he does struggle in the first half of the season. And Andretti Autosport have 4 full-time seats, so coming back to the team for the first time since 2014 is the ever-popular Canadian James Hinchcliffe. As after having a 6-race campaign with the team last year, highlighted by a 7th place finish at the Indy 500, he rejoins the team which saw him win 3 races in 2013, finishing the top 10 in the standings in 2012 and 2013. And so basically had his best seasons in IndyCar in those years. The tough thing to admit about Hinchcliffe since then, though, is that he's been the definition of a midfield driver since then with the likes of Smith Peterson Motorsports, as he's only finished in the top 10 in the championship once during that time in 2018 with 10th, and only had 3 wins over 5 seasons with the team. So he will need to get some results on the board and try and battle for a top 10 in the standings once again. But as I said, he did that before with this team. I'm sure he could do it again. And Andretti do have a part-time entry for Marco. Andretti has the son of Michael. He has been a full-time driver in IndyCar for 15 years, but in the off-season he announced he's only doing the Indy 500, and it comes off a season which was pretty miserable for him, as he only had 1 top 10 finish at Iowa. Despite grabbing the pole at the Indy 500, which is his only highlight, he only finished 20th in the standings, the last place of all the drivers who did the full season, and even behind rookie Ollie Askew, who missed a couple of races and drove at less than 100% in the second half of the year after a massive crash at the Indy 500. So yeah, it's not been pretty for Marco for a while. Since his last podium at Fontana in 2015, he only has 3 top 5 finishes. And his best finish in the championship has been a top 10 in 2018 with 9th. So yeah, maybe it was time for Marco to step back in an entry part owns as well, and maybe explore other series, like go back to sports cars like he used to do in his younger days, or just try some other series, another drive, and just maybe enjoy life as well. Maybe taking a step back in, being part-time, he can step back into C, maybe a bit more relaxed, and might produce better results. And talking of getting better results, we definitely saw that from the Arrow McLaren SP team last year. Has the Smith Peterson part of that, the SP part, have been the team for a number of years, but they linked up with McLaren at the end of 2019, and they had an all-rookie lineup last year of Ollie Askew and Patricio O'Ward. And Pato O'Ward was one of the stars of IndyCar last year. He finished 4th in the standings, just behind his old rival Colton Herta, and ahead of a top 10 field of the likes of champions and Indy 500 winners like Will Power, Simon Pagenaud, Ryan Hunter-Way, plus Indy 500 winners Takuma Sato and Alexander Rossi. Not bad at all from the young Mexican. As the 2018 Indy Lights champion ahead of Herta, had his first full-time season in IndyCar last year after briefly being part of the Red Bull Junior program in 2019, which led to him competing at the Red Bull Ring in Formula 2 and Super Formula as well. But he chose to leave the program at the end of the year, come back to America last year, and what a fantastic decision that was from him, as he's been great in IndyCar ever since his debut at the end of 2018 for Hardin Racing at Sonoma, where he finished 9th. In the following year, he competed with Hardin part-time, got a top 10 at the Circuit Americas, but last year he was brilliant at getting 4 podiums, coming close to winning in Road America, where he got beat out by his new teammate Felix Rosenquist. He also got the pole, and he also got podiums at Gateway and St. Pete as well.
He got a further 6 top 10 finishes, which means it's going to be tough for him to back that up this year, but I have no doubt he will. He's one of the most exciting young drivers we have seen in IndyCar in recent years, and I hope he can avoid the sophomore slump, which sometimes happens for second year drivers. But hey, he could push on like his old rival Herta did in his second full-time season. And alongside him, as I said, is Felix Rosenqvist, as the Swede who's approaching 30. He's been in IndyCar for a couple of seasons. He was Rookie of the Year in 2019 ahead of Colton Herta. Oh no, he did suffer a bit of the sophomore slump last year, as he had one podium, that win at Road America ahead of O'Ward. He did have 4 other top 10 finishes in the second half of the season, which saw him finish just outside the top 10 in the standings. But he's leaving Chip Ganassi after a couple of seasons with the team, and it's a big challenge for him this year with the young outfit. But he's used to doing that throughout his whole career, as after finally winning the European F3 title in 2015 ahead of the likes of F1 drivers like Antonio Giovinazzi, Charles Leclerc, Lance Stroll, George Russell, Alex Albon and Formula BMW teammates Jet Dennis and Maxi Günther, he drove all over the world for the next couple of years before landing in IndyCar. In 2016 he first headed to America, winning in Indy Lights, which is the top feeder series to IndyCar. He drove in DTM and the European GT World Challenge with Mercedes. He then went on to Formula E with Mahindra, finished top 3 there, winning a couple of races. And he's also done Super Formula, finishing top 5 there in the championship, and Super GT in Japan as well. He's also competed in the 24 Hours of Daytona twice and the Le Mans 24 Hours in 2017 with former IndyCar team Dragon Speed. So he's certainly packed a lot into his career, and you need all of it to challenge O'Ward this season and push to get better than the 6th place he got in the standings in his rookie year in 2019. And alongside the two, they also have another part-time driver for the Indy 500, and that is the veteran, the exciting Colombian Juan Pablo Montoya. And definitely O'Ward does remind me of Montoya from his younger years. But for Juan Pablo, he's returning to IndyCar for the first time since 2017, when he competed with Penske. It's a new team for him though, as he spent 6 years with Penske, 3 of them in IndyCar, where he won the Indy 500 in 2015 and lost out on the title to Scott Dixon on tiebreaker due to having less wins. And he also won the 2019 IMSA title with Penske. But he's driving for Smith Peterson for the first time. He's never finished lower than 6th in 5 attempts at the Indy 500. Even though he did have a DNF in 2016, being the first driver out. So he's pretty damn good round the speedway. So definitely watch out for Montoya, not just a challenge for a top 10, maybe even more. And we go from a 2-time Indy 500 champion and 99 kart champion in Montoya to one of the newest teams on the grid in Carden, and Max Chilton has been a part-timer in IndyCar since his decision to retire from ovals, apart from the Indy 500, since 2019, as he once again do that for the team in their 4th season in IndyCar. However, he hasn't achieved a top 10 finish with the team, as Connor Daly, who only did the ovals last year, got 4 of them in 5 outings. So for Chilton, he's only achieved 8 top 10 finishes in IndyCar, and he achieved 6 of them in 2017 with Chip Ganassi, when he led the most laps at the Indy 500 on the way to his only top 5 finish in the series. So it's going to be another difficult year for the Brit, and with it becoming even more competitive, always does every year, he's going to struggle to get that top 10 finish for Carden. However, we don't know who's going to be driving the oval. He's got TBA at the moment. I know it could be Daly, who, as I said, had a very successful outing for the team on the ovals last year, grabbing the team's first pole in IndyCar at Iowa. There's also been talk of R.C. Anderson, who drove for the team in 2019. And of course, there is 2019 Indy Lights champion Ollie Askew, who's without a seat after leaving McLaren SP. So watch out for an announcement on that soon. And now it's back to one of the big 3 teams and the reigning champions, Chip Ganassi Racing, with the champion Scott Dixon, one of the most experienced drivers in the field. The champion is as good as he's ever been at 40 years of age, as his consistency, he's only finished once outside the top 10 last year, and that was at Road America. His pace, where he started the year with 3 wins on the trot and grabbed 4 overall, and experience of 21 years in IndyCar now. This is his 20th season with Chip Ganassi. They are tough to match. As he won at Texas, the Indy Road Course, at Road America and Gateway last year, with third podiums at Iowa, the Indy 500 and St. Pete. There was no one better than him, with 13 top 10 finishes, and he had 9 top 5 finishes, equal with Joseph Newgarden, who he beat to the title. He could match AJ Foyt's record of 7 titles this year, and leap ahead of Mario Andretti to second all-time in victories, as he has 52. Dixon has 50 at the moment. I know Foyt is a bit away ahead with 67. So, could he leap ahead of at least Mario to get second all-time in the wins list? Don't doubt it at all, and don't doubt him to match AJ Foyt's title record. And alongside the champion is the Swede Marcus Ericsson, who was in F1 for a number of years. He's been in IndyCar for the last couple, since joining in 2019 with Smith Peterson, being a teammate of James Hinchcliffe. Well, he moved over to Chip Ganassi last year and showed good improvement from his rookie year, grabbing 3 top 5 finishes at Road America, Gateway and Mid-Ohio, as along with 9 top 10 finishes in total compared to just 3 in his first season. He finished just 15 points behind his teammate and fellow Swede Rosenqvist, so he finished 12th in the standings. The problem is his other teammate Dixon did win the title, so he needs to kind of level up again to help his teammate in the title fight and to help keep his seat, especially if another highly rated teammate performs as expected alongside him. And his new full-time teammate is Alex Palau, the Spaniard who was very impressive for Delcoin last year. Even though he just finished 16th in the overall standings, he did grab 3 top 10 finishes. He started 7th at the Indy 500, and he was second in the rookie standings, 51 points behind Rinus VeeKay. And yeah, stepping up from Delcoin after his rookie year, just like Ed Jones actually did before him in 2018. I know the Brit only lasted the season with Chip Ganassi before heading to Ed Carpenter. Hopefully, for Plough, it lasts a bit longer, as the 24-year-old Spaniard will be looking to follow in the footsteps of Alex Zanardi, and teammate Scott Dixon as someone who Chip Ganassi takes a bit of a chance on, and will hopefully step up in the seat. He's done it in the past though, when he's needed to, as his career looked to stagnate after 2017, where he did a couple of races in F2 with Campos, and did Formula 3.5 that year as well, but he then went back down to F3 in 2018 with High Tech. He did get 7th in the championship, but then he made a great move, heading to Japan and to Super Formula, with a great opportunity at Nakajima Racing, one of the top teams in Super Formula, where he fought for the title, ended up 3rd in the standings, and now he's in a top team in IndyCar, just like he was in Japan. So we'll see if Plough can step up, and as I said, he might be the support that Dixon needs rather than Ericsson. We will see. He definitely is talented enough to do that. And then filling the 4th seat at Chip Ganassi are a couple of veterans. I say veterans, there's one of 3 rookies in the first seat. Jimmy Johnson, the 7-time NASCAR Sprint Cup champion. Yes, it feels a bit weird saying a 45-year-old is a rookie, but Johnson makes a move across after around 20 years in NASCAR. He was competing only on the road in street courses, as he promised his wife not to drive on the ovals, even though he's only won 1 road or street course race in his NASCAR career. So it's going to be incredibly tough for him, as someone who's mostly driven on ovals throughout his career. We can only dream that he reconsider driving on ovals, especially for the Indy 500. I definitely think he will in the future. I definitely think, with the aero screen, I definitely think he might change his mind in like next year or 2 if he stays with Chip Ganassi. But for this year, if he can get a top 10 finish anywhere, just 1 top 10 finish, that'd be a great result for him. Driving on the ovals in Johnson's car will be Tony Kanaan, the 2004 Series champion, the 2013 Indy 500 winner. He has been signed to a 2-year contract, and this is after 3 seasons with AJ Foyt, as he previously drove for Chip Ganassi back in 2014 to 2017 when he grabbed his last IndyCar win to date. at 2014 Fontana and finished in the top 10 in the championship every season. Of course, he's not going to be doing that this time, but he did get a couple of top 10s for Foyt at Texas and Gateway last year on the ovals, and grabbed his only podium with AJ Foyt at Gateway in 2019, so he definitely is good on the ovals. His only top 10 finishes that season were Iowa, Pocono, Indy 500 in 2019, that is. So there's not many better at reading an oval, and he is the most experienced driver in IndyCar history. So not many better drivers around to fit in for the ovals in that seat. And we move on to the plucky underdog, Dale Coyne race. And when I say plucky underdog, they used to be at the back of the field quite a lot before the DW12 era, but they've been very solid in the last decade, and they are led by Ed Jones, as the Brit who competed in his rookie season with Dale Coyne back in 2017, finished on the podium at the Indy 500 before, as I said, he moved on to Chip Ganassi in 2018, where he got a couple of podiums, but it wasn't the best season, unfortunately, with Chip Ganassi. So he stepped down in 2019 to the Ed Carpenter Road and Street Course seat and competed in the Indy 500 as well, where he got a top 10 on the Indy Road Course and started 4th for the Indy 500. So the 2016 Indy Lights champion is definitely someone who's quick at the speedway, been looking to get back onto the form he showed with Chip Ganassi was a couple of podiums and 8 top 10 finishes, on his way to 13th in the standings. So I could definitely see that it could be a good aim for Ed Jones, who was meant to spend last year in DTM, but unfortunately due to travel restrictions wasn't able to do that. And so yeah, in his first full time since that Chip Ganassi go in 2018, it's going to be a difficult season for the Brit, apart from maybe at the Indy 500. Also competing at the Indy 500 will be Pietro Fittipaldi, as he comes into IndyCar after 2 starts in F1 with Haas, and the Fittipaldi name returns to IndyCar for the first time since his last out in IndyCar back in 2018, when he made 6 starts with Dale Coyne, with a highlight of getting a top 10 at Portland. So the 24-year-old grandson of Emerson, he returns to drive the ovals which Romain Grosjean won't drive. So he's replacing the Frenchman for the 2nd year in a row. And it's been a bit of a tough time for Fittipaldi since his time in IndyCar previously, as he broke both his legs in a crash during qualifying for the 2018 6 Hours of Spa. He then drove in DTM for Audi in 2019, and of course he was the testing reserve driver for Haas last year and will be again this year. So as I said, driving on the road and street courses is Romain Grosjean. Another rookie who's pretty experienced in another series, as in F1 he drove in 181 races, grabbed 10 podiums, and the recently turned 35-year-old competing on the road and street courses for Dale Coyne, as he changed his mind about driving on ovals after a horrific crash in Bahrain. I know he has opened his mind up to driving the likes of maybe like Gateway in the future, so we'll see if his mind does change, like I hope for Jimmy Johnson as well. But it's always a challenge for rookies to be competitive in the ultra tight series of IndyCar. But again, a few top 10 finishes would be fantastic from Grosjean, and I definitely think he has the pace. He definitely showed that in F1. There was always doubts about whether he could actually finish races at times, but no doubt in IndyCar it's a great opportunity for him to be in a bit of a lesser pressure cooker environment than F1, just be a bit more relaxed. I think IndyCar will suit Grosjean a bit better than that Haas did in the last couple of years. And finally, it won't be Dale Coyne without TBA in the running for one of its seats, as they normally have an extra car for the Indy 500, but the team hasn't announced anything. And again, there's the likes of R.C. Anderson, Ollie Askew in the running for the seat, but we'll see what Dale Coyne announced. And we move on to a team which probably wants to win the Indy 500 the most out of almost any of them, and there's Ed Carpenter Racing, with owner-driver Ed Carpenter driving on only the ovals. He's done that since 2014. That is the one race he wants to win, and probably the only reason he's probably driving still, the 40-year-old, another 40-year-old in the field. As since he's been driving only on ovals, he grabbed his last win on an oval back in Texas in 2014. During this time he has 4 podiums, 6 top 5s and 12 top 10 finishes. And last year he did get 5th at Texas, but apart from that he didn't finish higher than 15th in 6 races. So the 3-time Indy 500 pole sitter and runner-up, the 2018 Indy 500. He seems to be running out of time to get that elusive Indy 500 win. As it does get harder every year for the part-timers to be as competitive as the full-time runners. And a bit like with Dale Coyne, we have the share between ovals and road and street courses. So running on the road and street courses again for the team will be Connor Daly, as the 29-year-old has struggled to hold down a full-time seat in the series since coming back to America in 2015 after going through the European ladder system all the way up to GP2 in 2014. He had only his third full-time season last year across Cardin and Ed Carpenter, as he got 4 top 10 finishes and the first pole for Cardin at Iowa last year on the ovals, which helped him to his best finish in the standings of 17th. With Ed Carpenter on the road and street courses though, he only got a best finish of 12th at the Indy Road course last year twice, which is strange for someone who grew up, mostly driving the road and street courses in his junior career. So he definitely needs to improve his form on the road and street courses, and with less ovals on the calendar if he wants to keep his seat. I know he does have super backing, does Connor Daly, and I said he might be in the running for Cardin again to do the ovals. It'll be very interesting to see for the American. And driving in the other seat for Ed Carpenter Racing is 2020 Rookie of the Year, Rinus VeeKay, who had a outstanding at times rookie calendar, as he grabbed pole and a podium at the Indy Road course, got further top 5 finishes at the Indy Road course in round 2 and at Gateway, and he got 5 top 10 finishes in total on his way to 14th in the standings. He also qualified 4th at the Indy 500, so he'll need to convert some of that raw pace into some more substantial results this year, but I have no doubt he can do that. He showed on the road to Indy how great he was, winning the Indy Pro 2000 title, finishing run-up in the USF 2000 and Indy Lights Championships as well. So the young Dutchman, I definitely am a big fan of him, and I think he could maybe step up to even be like top 10 in the overall standings this year. And now we move on to another newer team, which is Meyer Shank Racing. It's particularly full-time, as it's just their second full-time season with driver Jack Harvey. As last year, the 28-year-old Brit had his first full-time season in IndyCar, which saw 6 top 10 finishes, including 9th at the Indy 500. And you'll need to continue that and build on that with Meyer Shank, maybe get some top 5s like he got in 2019. He got on the podium with them at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. So there are not many better drivers for him to learn to do that though, with his new teammate. As Meyer Shank, after buying Dragon Speeds to DW12 cars, means they can enter a second car for 6 races this year with Helio Castro Neves. The 45-year-old Brazilian, the 3-time Indy 500 winner in 2001, 2002 and 2009. He finally won a championship last year in IMSA in his last season with Penske after 20 years together with the captain's team. He's also won the 24 Hours Daytona alongside Rossi with Wayne Taylor Racing this year, and he'll be looking to become the 4th member of the Indy 500 4-win club 20 years after his first win. So for Harvey, he showed good form at Indy 500 last year as well. Like, Helio Castro Neves is a fantastic driver to learn from, and for the Brazilian, maybe something to prove as well after leaving Penske, that he still has it, even though he is 45, about to turn 46 next month. Next up is an Indy 500 only entry, and that is Paretta Autosport, run by the former director of SRT Motorsports, who ran the Dodge Vipers, Beth Paretta. They will compete in the Indy 500 with technical support from Team Penske, so what a fantastic team to get support from. And driving for them will be Simona Di Silvestro, as the 32-year-old is returning to IndyCar for the first time since the 2015 Indy 500. And the Swiss Miss had her best season in IndyCar in 2013 with KV Racing, before leaving to become an affiliate driver with Sauber in F1 in 2014, which unfortunately led nowhere. And so after a year with the team, she competed in Formula E with Andretti, competed in a couple of IndyCar races as well in 2015. Then moved on to supercars with Nissan, and is now a Porsche driver, having competed in the ADAC GT Masters last year. Like, she was one of my favourite drivers as well in IndyCar a decade ago, and I'm very excited to see her back in IndyCar. I believe she should have never left to go to that Sauber dream seat. I know it's an F1 seat, but as we saw with Sauber at that time, there were too many contracts, too many drivers for just 2 seats there. And yeah, she stayed in IndyCar. Like, she was improving. Like 2013, I said, was her best season. Like, she was just getting better. What could have been, unfortunately, for the last couple of years. But very glad she's back at the Indy 500, even though she was a better road and street course racer. Like, I think just making the field and having a solid run in the Indy 500 would do well for them. And maybe, they can build next year to maybe do more events together. And speaking of Team Penske, Roger Penske, who owns IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he's got 4 very good drivers for his full-time seats. Beginning with the American Joseph Newgarden, the 30-year-old has kind of established himself as Penske's lead driver since joining the team in 2017 from Ed Carpenter Racing. He's won 2 titles in those seasons, battled for a further title as well last year, while his teammates have kind of struggled for consistency during that time. But despite an incredible success he has had, one thing has eluded him, and that's the Indy 500, with a best finish of only 3rd with Ed Carpenter Racing back in 2016. He hasn't bettered that with Penske. But over a full season, no one is better to challenge Scott Dixon and try and wrestle back that title for Penske. As last year he had the most wins, tied with Dixon with 4. He had 6 podiums, second most behind Dixon 7. Had 9 top 5 finishes, tied most with Dixon, and 12 top 10s, again second most behind Dixon's 13. So yeah, if there's anyone who can beat Dixon over the season, it is Newgarden. But again, that elusive Indy 500 win might be his biggest challenge of the year once again. And alongside him is another 40-year-old, and this time it is Will Power, as the Australian is as unpredictable as he is fast. He had the most poles last year with 5. With Joseph Newgarden, the only other driver to get multiple poles last year with 3. He won at Mid-Ohio and the penultimate round at the Indy Road Course. He had 5 podiums, but he only had 7 top 10 finishes overall, as he also had his share of bad luck, like he showed at the season finale in St. Pete, or disappeared in races like he did at the Indy 500. And he has finished in the top 5 in the championship every year since 2010. His last title challenge was in 2016. And he will need to start to see some more consistency for the first time since that season if he wants to win another title in his contract year. So remember, he's on the hot seat. He's the 2014 Series champ and 2018 Indy 500 winner. And another driver who's on the hot seat as well in another contract year is Simon Pagenaud, as the 36-year-old Frenchman has become kind of Penske's yo-yo driver. Like, on his day, he's as good as anyone in the championship, but as highlighted a few times last year, he can struggle more than his teammates to get the most out of the car, which means his 7th season with Penske is a vital one. And entering his 10th season in IndyCar, he comes off his worst season with Penske since his first season with the team in 2015. He won the title the following year in 2016 though, and in recent years he does bounce back from average seasons by challenging for the championship like he did in 2017 and 2019, losing both of those titles to teammate Newgarden. And he started last year strongly by winning in Iowa, getting podiums here in Texas and at the Indy Road Course, and getting a further top 5 in the second Iowa race as well. However, he only had 3 further top 10 finishes after a disappointing Indy 500 in the second half of the year, as he struggled the most out of the Penske drivers, and that was just a year at the Indy 500 after he dominated the event in 2019, winning it from pole. So you need another bounce back season here if he's going to keep his Penske seat. And the final driver of the quartet of Penske drivers is Scott McLaughlin, the 3-time Supercars champion. He did have a race at the end of last year at St. Pete. He finished in 22nd. He did kind of struggle on his IndyCar debut, but he's dominated Supercars in recent years with DJR Team Penske. But this is his first time in a single-seater championship since the 2010 Victorian Formula 4 Championship over a decade ago, and he's been in touring cars since then. So while we've seen the likes of fellow supercar champion Marcus Ambrose make the leap over the Atlantic to America. He did it in NASCAR, which is again a bit tin top series, a bit more closer to touring cars. Be interesting to see how the Kiwi adapts to single seaters. He has in the off season lost around 35 pounds. Become a lean, mean IndyCar winning machine hopefully. And he does have one of the best teams on the grid to learn from. As I said, he's got Indy 500 and Series champions alongside him, so not many better teams to learn from. And I'm sure he will get better as the season progresses. Like, he's at the peak of his powers driving wise in his mid to late 20s as well. So yeah, look out for McLaughlin, especially in the second half of the season, to get pretty strong in an IndyCar and battle not just top 10s, maybe top 5s and podiums as well. Finally, that leaves us with Ray Hall, Letterman and Lanigan Racing. And they are the reigning Indy 500 winners with Takuma Sato. IndyCar's fine Ryan. The 44-year-old just keeps getting better with age as he enters his 12th season in IndyCar. Just to highlight this, since turning 40, he has won 2 Indy 500s in 2017 and last year. He finished in the top 10 of the points in 3 out of the 4 seasons as well. And he's won in every season with 5 victories, 5 poles and 9 podiums. He's matured into a very reliable driver now, and he ended last season with just 1 top 10 in the last 5 races after being top 5 in the standards for most of the year. So he still needs to put together a full season after beginning last year with 7 top 10 finishes in 9 races. Like, that's the one thing I can still knock Sato about, is that sometimes he just gets caught up in incidents and things he shouldn't do, and it means he doesn't, get those top 5 in the championship like he should. Particularly with the pace, as I said, and how more reliable he is as a driver now. Like, he came in IndyCar almost crashing every other race. Now it's very rare to see him do that throughout a season. Maybe has 1 or 2 wobbles, as I said, gets caught up in incidents, but apart from that, Takuma Sato is one of the best drivers now in IndyCar. And alongside him is Graham Rahal, the son of team owner Bobby Rahal, who's a former Series and IndyCar champion, is Bobby. Graham he's going to be having his 200th race this season. He's part of a very solid partnership here at Rahal and Letterman Lanigan as he enters his 9th season in his father's team and his 4th alongside Sato. Last year he got 3 podiums, conferred at the Indy 500 and 9 top 10 finishes, as he got his best finish in the championship since 2017. And he'll be looking to get his first victory though since his Detroit double in 2017. He's going to end up in the top 5 in the championship again, which he did in 2015 to 2016. And with Sato getting his best championship finish last year with 7th, Rahal in 6th, like, both of them could get top 5 if they just have those couple of races go their way. But for Rahal, he just needs to get a win again. As I said, Sato keeps winning every season. Rahal needs to take those opportunities and get those victories. He's going to step up and get top 5 in the championship once again. And alongside them in an Indy 500 only effort is Santorito Ferrucci, as the American is no longer a full-time IndyCar driver after 3 seasons with Dale Coyne, as he switches to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, doing the 1.5 mile ovals in that series in a part-time schedule this year. But he's doing the Indy 500 for Rahal, and after leaving Europe and F2 in disgrace after an incident at Silverstone in 2018, he's had 2 full-time seasons with Dale Coyne in 2019 and 20, where he got 4 top 5 finishes all on ovals, including his only top 5 finish last year at the Indy 500 in 4th. He also has a finish of 7th in 2019 in the Indy 500 when he was the Rookie of the Year. So again, he could be a factor in the top 10 to get another top 10 at Indy 500 with the reigning Indy 500 winners. So there you go, all the teams, drivers, the calendar, the cars. All that's left is the race, and beginning with Barber Motorsports Park and then next week with St. Pete. So I hope you enjoyed. Some more power Oversteer we'll probably be exploring MotoGP next week. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Also, Munoz back to the Indy 500. Come on. Finished runner-up twice there. He was one of the best drivers on the speedway in the last decade. Get him back in an IndyCar in the Indy 500. Come on.